We are all about to share in a first together, our first ever Toast Talk. 3 back-to-back 18-minute sessions. I will introduce our first speaker, and then she will introduce our next speaker and pass the mic. Duquesa Dean is a certified public speaker, coach, trainer, and author. Her company, DDOGC Consultant Solutions, has supported leading businesses in the Bahamas, such as the Central Bank of the Bahamas, Bahamar Deltec, the Bahamas Development Bank, Nassau Airport Development Company, and many more. As a personal development coach, she has helped women from all over the world to transform their lives. Her passion is to help free people from the "what will other people think of me" syndrome and guide them to taking ownership of their lives. At Toastmasters, Duquesa earned the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, and she is a past President's Division Governor. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Duquesa Dean.
Thank you. Inner evolution is a painful process, but it is worth it. Madam Chairman, may I have the clicker, please? Understanding the role that we play in our lives is a great starting point to evolve our leadership. Dennis Whiteley said that there are two primary choices in life: to accept conditions as they exist, or to accept responsibility for changing them. But making decisions is not always easy. And an inner evolution journey can be by choice or by chance. There I was, 25 years ago, sitting on my bathroom floor, having a huge mental debate about whether or not I would take my life. As the mental battle waged, I stood up and was shocked at myself for contemplating taking my life as a way out. I exited the bathroom and walked along the long corridor that led to the kitchen, where I removed a bottle of orange juice from the refrigerator and returned to the bathroom. In the bathroom, I opened the medicine cabinet, took out a white bottle of tablets, closed the medicine cabinet, and stared at myself in the mirror for quite some time. As I stared at myself in the mirror, I had a thought. It was simply that the life that I was living at that moment was not the one that I'd envisioned for myself when I was 8 years old, daydreaming about who I would grow up to be. But between the ages of 8 and 25, so many things happened. My dreams, they were buried beneath piles of pain and trauma, forgotten until that very moment. How did I get here? I asked myself. The answer was crystal clear. Poor decisions, seeking external validation and acceptance, and having no clear direction for my life. Staring back at me from the mirror was a woman who had allowed the pressure of society friends, jobs, and family to keep her from pursuing the dreams she once held in her heart. I was the shell of the strong, confident woman I was at 18 years old, young, naive, yet determined to live life my way. I felt powerless and thought that my life had no value. I had become a victim. It's easy to become victims in our lives. We believe that things are happening to us and that we have no control. We give in and then we give up. You have to know that every experience in your life is connected. No experience is ever wasted. Well, that is. Unless you do nothing with the lessons you learn from your successes and your failures. When you take the lessons from your experiences, you are now equipped and empowered to reposition yourself in the future. On that Saturday, in May of 1998, I had two choices: to tap out on life or go through a process of inner evolution. I had to learn self-leadership, choose personal and professional development, be mentored, and stay in growth mode even when it was painful. Choices direct destinies, and we must make choices that help us align with the goals that we have for our lives. On that day in 1998, I had hit rock bottom. But the choice to live is what redirected my path for today. You have to choose to evolve your leadership, starting with self-leadership, then move to leading others, companies, communities, countries, and even becoming world leaders. Self-leadership is said to be the hardest, but perhaps the highest form of leadership. To become an authentic leader without compromising your values requires a few things of us. The first thing it requires is that we assess ourselves to truly see who we are and what our drivers are. At the core of you, void of all of your titles, who do you see? We must inspect our beliefs because beliefs drive action. We can build everlasting strength by building on our beliefs. We must identify the type of leader that we want to be. Here's the reality. People see us more than they hear us. And as a leader, your actions are always on display. Our team members make the decision about whether or not they will follow us based on the examples that we set. As a leader, who do you want to be? What are the characteristics that you want people to see, hear, and feel in you when they interact with you? And once we have identified the leader we want to be, we must work consistently to become the person that we have identified we want to be. Being our best comes at a cost. That cost is continuous development, taking calculated risk, trying, failing, getting up, learning, and trying again. So today I ask you, what intentional steps are you taking to become the leader you want to be? And finally, we must master self-leadership. Discipline is the key that gets us from where we are to where we want to be. And it is said to take 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert at something. How many hours of leadership practice are you putting in? And so point number one in my presentation today is to be authentic in leading others. We must first lead ourselves. How then do we leverage the leadership lessons we learn to embrace authenticity and use it to become volunteer leaders? Raise your hand for me if you have ever worked with a leader who cultivated the best in you. Oh, that's amazing. I'm coming right back to that story. Because when we grow up without enough validation, or if our self-esteem is not properly developed, and we really want to belong, we adjust to fit in. Leading ourselves requires that we become so grounded in who we are as individuals that we shift the environment, any environment we enter, and become a guiding light for others to follow. Self-leadership is said to be the highest and perhaps most difficult form of leadership. With that thought in mind, how do we leverage the leadership lessons we learn to embrace authenticity and use it to become volunteer leaders? I go back to that question of how many of you have had a leader who cultivated the best in you, a leader who helps you to identify your strengths, to grow in the area of your strengths, stretched you beyond your comfort zone, and helped you to achieve things you never even imagined were possible. A few years ago, I worked with one such leader. His name is George. I smile even today at the mention of his name. George was different from other leaders. I remember rushing to get to work at 8 a.m. each weekday morning, even though I wasn't scheduled to be there until 8:30 a.m. Some mornings, I would hurriedly dash out the house half-dressed, and while driving to work, button my shirt, brush my hair, or apply my lipstick. All because I wanted to get to work by 8 a.m. Now you may be sitting there thinking, Duquesa, if you didn't have to be to work until 8:30 a.m., why were you rushing to get there for 8 a.m.? And I'll tell you, it was because at 8 a.m., George would make his rounds to my office to check in on me, my division's progress, and to touch those who fell under my leadership. It was an experience I looked forward to. George was short in stature, but huge in presence. He would enter my office with a big, bright smile and an engaging personality. During those morning conversations, George made me feel seen, heard, involved, and appreciated. He had this special skill of making you feel like you belonged and that you were valued. George never gave those of us he led the answers. Instead, he asked guiding questions, gave us research projects, and he empowered us by telling us the parameters by which we can make decisions without consulting him. As a leader, George turned mistakes into teachable moments. And he cultivated an environment where all team leaders were held accountable through thoughtful and positive support and thoughtful correction. George was thoughtful. He was likable and he was respected. George actively listened, he was flexible, and he cultivated community. What I learned about George while working with him is that he was not intimidated by the skills, talents, or strengths of his team. Instead, he knew that those skills, talents, and strengths would elevate the organization and drive it to success. To become this type of leader, though, there are certain things that we need to do. The first thing we need to do is to ditch our baggage. We must then identify where we want to go. We must identify how to move forward and be willing to do the work consistently. There are 4 different things that work together. George's example, the skills I learned in the Toastmasters program, and the tools I learned while becoming a John C. Maxwell certified coach have taught me that for leaders to embrace authenticity and use it to become volunteer leaders, there are some things that we need to do. We must live our message because people do what they see. Can you repeat that with me? People do what they see. Yes. Secondly, we must know our audience. This means that as leaders, we should be spending quality time with our team members, getting to know who they are, what their drivers are, what their motivators are, and how to give them positive reinforcement and thoughtful correction. We must go to where they are. Because let's be real, we tell people all the time, you need to come up to my level. Well, if you're up here and I'm down there, how do I get up here? We must discontinue telling people that they must come up to our level. They need to be mentored to get there. We must also focus on them, not on us. Contrary to popular belief, leadership is not about ego. Leadership is about humility and service. And so leaders who embrace authenticity and use it to become volunteer leaders know that they have to offer hope and direction. And so point number 2 is that authentic leadership helps us to elevate our entire lives. So how do we carry these lessons outside of Toastmasters to lead and influence others? I'm so glad you asked. Being a great leader is all about having a genuine commitment, a genuine willingness, and a true commitment to lead others to achieve common visions and goals through positive influence. No leader can achieve anything great alone. So here's how to bring this alive. Care about the people you serve just as much as you care about results or profits. View those you lead optimistically. Seek advice from them. They have the information you need. Actively listen. Minimize your ego. Ask questions instead of making assumptions. Empower your teams to make decisions instead of needing to be in control. And start caring about your employees instead of being indifferent to their needs. And so point number 3 is wherever you are in your leadership journey, pat yourself on the back and celebrate. And now that you know better, it's time to do better. I close by challenging you to become an authentic leader without compromising your values. To lead yourself first, then lead others, your community, country, and the world. And to celebrate your current leadership level, then choose how you will elevate it. And so, it's your time to evolve. Eliminate very outdated leadership values expeditiously. As I leave, please say, I will evolve.